For Black History Month, I'm talking about the work of one black biblical scholar or theologian every day, and today is Nyasha Jr.'s book, An Introduction to Womanist Biblical Interpretation. When people narrate the history of the emergence of womanist thought in general, and of womanist biblical scholarship and theology in particular, they tend to narrate it in the same way that they narrate the emergence of black feminist thought. That is to say, as a reactionary corrective measure against something that was happening in predominantly white middle-class spaces in a related field. For example, people will say towards the end of second-wave feminism, feminists started fighting amongst themselves about a number of irreconcilable issues. They couldn't decide what to do about sex work and pornography, hence the feminist sex wars, and they couldn't really decide how best to theorize about transgenderism. So in each of these cases, liberal feminists went one way and radical feminists tended to go another way. But both liberal and radical feminists struggled with what to do and how to fruitfully incorporate and listen to the voices of women of color. Both the liberal and the radical feminist movements were largely white, middle-class women's movements that were largely inattentive to issues of race and class. And black feminism emerged as a response to that. For example, the Combahee River Collective, the black women's consciousness-raising group that gave us the term identity politics, explicitly cites the failures of white second-wave feminism in their closing statement as a reason for why they were going another way in their activism. The work of black feminists then, like Kimberly Crenshaw and Patricia Hill Collins, would go on to be foundational for third-wave feminism. Narrated in this way, black feminism really only exists as a result of the failures of a largely white second-wave feminism. People will do the same thing when they narrate the history of womanist theology and biblical interpretation. They'll say, look, we have here feminist theology. Feminist theology is largely white and middle class. Feminist theology is struggling to account for race and class issues. It's struggling to listen to the voices of women of color. So womanist theology and biblical interpretation again emerges as a reactionary corrective measure against what's happening in feminist theology. Again, no failures in feminist theology, no womanist theology. Nyasha Jr.'s book says, no, that's not how that happened. Let me set the record straight. Jr.'s book shows how contemporary womanist biblical interpretation actually has roots that go as far back as, if not farther than, the beginning of the 19th century. She surveys a number of spiritual autobiographies written by African American women in the 19th century that feature womanist theology's signature method. And this is the method of explicitly using black women's experience to interpret the Bible for political activism and social and material liberation. Nyasha Jr.'s book allows us to narrate the history and the methodology of womanist theology and biblical interpretation in a way that's authentically black and in a way that's entirely independent of other kinds of theology and biblical interpretation out there. Follow for more academic Bible content.